Hey everyone, this is Carla Black coming to you from Austin, Texas. I'm your host for this show we call Highly Unorthodox, a discussion about the series Unorthodox on Netflix. Today's show is brought to you by our sponsors, Texas Hill Country Homes, serving all your residential real estate needs in Central Texas, and Creative by Carla, empowering artists of all types to break through their creative blocks. On today's show, I'm speaking with Justine Seymour, who's the costume designer for Unorthodox. We'll be talking about that iconic wedding gown, those furry hats, and so much more. So let's get started. It's so great to meet you. Welcome to our show. So how did you get this fantastic gig on Unorthodox?
It was actually my daughter who put me up for the show.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was my daughter who did the making of. She filmed that.
Oh, that was fantastic.
So
your daughter's a filmmaker as well? Or?
Well, she's a writer, and she's just multi-talented. Her name's Marlena Melchior, and she knows Anna, and she put my name forwards for the job. And so then I went through the interview process and won it, but it really was due to her that I got the job.
Did you have a favorite outfit? I'm guessing it's the wedding dress from the show.
Actually, my favorite outfit was Miriam's wardrobe. She was my favorite character to dress. I really liked Malka's wardrobe as well, but Miriam's, because she was a very complicated character, she was sort of the nasty mother-in-law, sort of meddling all the time, and really was one of the main issues that they had as a couple. So I wanted to show her clothing to be a very strict way, like everything was very strict and put together and perfect, and on the outside everything had to look perfect and beautiful. And then the turmoil within her of trying to control the family and be the matriarch that keeps everyone in line, and then inviting this unusual creature into her world, Esty. I sort of threw a cat amongst the pigeons. So I really wanted to show that, and so she was my favorite.
What about the difference in Estee's clothes from New York to Berlin? Because her clothes were very modest. They weren't over the top in any kind of way. Did you make a decision to choose clothes that somebody would choose just getting out of that community? Or what was the thought process with that?
So I actually interviewed Deborah. That was my main question. Was she like, yay, freedom, and jump into clothes that we wear, or how was it? So she told me that the transition was very, very slow. Although she did own a pair of jeans while she was still in her home in Williamsburg, and she used to put them on and walk around the house wearing them. That was her little guilty pleasure. It's written in the book. But what she told me was that, of course, they don't see their body. They put their nightdress on top of their clothes when they get dressed or undressed, and the whole thing is very, very contained and strict. So it's a huge process for her to change, and it took a long time. She said it took about 4 years, actually. I wanted to peel away the layers from Esty slowly, and the most revealing she is when she has her little interaction with Robert. But did you see the bra?
I don't recall the bra. Was that very old-fashioned?
It was the most old-fashioned bra I could find. And it was really like it was from the late 50s, but not like the groovy one. And I just wanted to make sure that nothing looked too sexual about her, because she wouldn't have been. And even though she was very hungry to experience a gentle part of her love life, which she obviously didn't have, I didn't want her to sort of undress and just look like a sex god. She just needed to still look like the person she was. So I chose incredibly ugly underwear, and then underwear, the panties came right up to her waist, but you never get to see them. They were real, yes. They were really ugly Nana pants. Yeah, so I did really try and go slowly with her clothing and make it look realistic, that she could just about cope with this, but nothing too revealing at all. I mean, the other revealing one was when she was in a t-shirt and shorts at her mum's house after she slept the night there.
What about the musicians? I thought that was kind of interesting because were they in thrift store? Were those thrift store finds, or was there anything specifically? They're musicians, but they're classical musicians, so they're probably not making a lot of money. They seem very modest too in their own way.
Well, they didn't want it to look fame, you know, they really didn't want it to be like amazing glitzy. They just, classical musicians are quite, you know, generally quite conservative as well. I of course wanted to push the envelope because I wanted to contrast the colors, the palettes that I'd chosen for the New York part to the palette that I chose for Berlin, and I wanted to be much more vibrant and much more saturated and much more just alive, really. So I did a combination of secondhand clothing and new clothing. We needed repeats for all the swimming costumes, of course, so they were all new.
Were you able to take any more liberties during the club scene? I mean, the lighting was so intense and so blue that you probably didn't get as much of an effect of the clothes then, but I thought, you know, they're getting a night out. Maybe they get to dress up a little bit.
Yeah, well, I did, but you didn't get to see much of it. If you had lined up all of the people in the nightclub, everyone looked amazing. They all looked absolutely fantastic. We had a lot of real clubbers come and wear their own clothes, and then of course they brought extra stuff for me to choose from, and so we styled every single person that was in that, and I think that was over 200. I think it was about 250 extras on that day.
Did you find any particular characters that were most transformed by their clothes?
Well, I would say all the women, because all the women that came in were just regular, gorgeous young women dressed in t-shirts and jeans and Birkenstock or summer dresses. And I bought all of the tights that they wear in Williamsburg, because there's a special denier that they wear. And so they're this thick, horrible, flesh-colored tight. But to make sure that you don't think that they've just got really lovely skin, they put this really thick seam down the back. So there's no way that you can think, oh, they're lovely legs. Like, everything just does not look lovely. So poor old Ronnie had to get these horrible tights on, and they all did. So they were all really hot and uncomfortable, and they all had to wear flat shoes, and so there was
And as you
nothing.
said, they were filming in the summertime too, with all those layers and layers of clothes.
Well, it was a complete heat wave, and quite unusual for Berlin to be that hot.
Can you tell me about the wedding dress?
So Shira is a very, very tiny actress. She's like a 00. And I couldn't afford to have one made. I didn't have the time. I didn't have the manpower. So I went on eBay with my assistant Barbara, and we found about 10 dresses that could work for the modesty dressing, which was collarbone to wrist to ankle, everything covered up. And I did want it to have quite a lot of texture in it, because I think that looks much more interesting in camera. And I wanted it to be very big and very princess-like, and I wanted it to celebrate the turning of Esther's life from her little girl, cooking the soups at home and helping out, to being the woman of the house and, going to have the life that she was so hungry for. So I went online, I scaled it down to one dress, which I really loved. And then I actually took Esty with me, Shira with me, to try it on. And it was about a foot too long. The waist dropped down to her hip bones. The arms went past her fingers. It was all baggy, like everything was baggy, but I could see the bones were right. So we bought the dress, and then Mathieu, Neumeier, my tailor, and I unpicked it all. Then I fitted it on her as I wanted it, and then he sewed it back together. A lot of it by hand, because of all of the pearls that were on it. It was a very, very heavy, clustery dress to do. So he did an amazing job.
It
And
was really phenomenal. So for each production that you do, I mean, obviously this is very specific, but for each production you do, how much research is involved with what you want to do? Or does a lot of that come from the director? Or is that all you being authentic?
no, that's totally me. The director doesn't have time to do that research. We did all go to Brooklyn together and do research together, but we all focused on our own departments. Silke was taking photographs of furniture and interiors, and when we went into one of the community members' houses, she was very intrigued by the fact there was no art on the wall, there were no photographs, it was very specific as to what she could do. And I took photographs of what the women were wearing in the house. And so we had the house dresses that I really wanted to make realistic. So I had those all built actually. So I did loads of research. I did about 2 weeks worth of research within Williamsburg itself. And then I read a few books, and I also did lots and lots of research online and watched all the films that I could. But Satmar community is specific with their clothing and the way they look. But I also wanted to celebrate the beauty within the restraints of the wardrobe. And what I noticed within the community when I was there was that all the women are very much covered up, but they will have these fabulous headscarves on, and they particularly love Ferragamo or Gucci, or they love the designer headscarves because it kind of is a bit of a status symbol to them. They love, for some reason, Kate Spade shoes were the fashion when I was there, like these little cute ballet flats. So there were little details like that that I really wanted to pick up on. And then they have those little headpieces that stick onto the back of the wig. So there were 3 layers of how pious one is, and the most pious is to have the scarf with the little piece of hair fringe coming out the front.
Were you able to use some of the designer touches in the
Yes.
wardrobe? Oh, that's great.
Yes, yes, yes. I think I could only afford 5 real scarves, which I saved mainly for Malka. No, I beg your pardon, for Miriam. And then I bought lots and lots of fakes, but they were all from secondhand shops. They were all like $1 each. So the little hats are very expensive. I think they were running about $125 a piece.
Wow.
Yeah, so I bought 2, 2 for Malka, and then I actually made the rest myself because I couldn't afford them.
Can you just tell me about the Streimels?
So the Streimels are something that the Orthodox Jews get on their wedding day. Each Streimel is made out of 6 minks, and they're incredibly beautiful. They're amazing works of art, and they're very expensive. And there's a whole heap of reasons and combinations of things that went on, but we very thankfully decided to go for the fake fur and to make them ourselves. And yes, it was inspired by desperation of lack of budget, but also it was very much celebrated by the want to not contribute to the fur industry. So it ticked a lot of boxes for us to make them. So we had to make 45 of them.
Wow, 45.
So they're very strict in measurements because they follow a fashion. So if you look online, you can sometimes see Streimels that are like, 3 or 4 inches in width, but ours were 8 inches. So they were really big. They didn't stand too far away from the head, probably 3 inches away from the head. That's also something that changes according to fashion. So what I did was I found a base hat that we could build onto. I wanted to make the Streimels authentic as possible, and they have a conical point inside the fur that's made out of felt. So we had 10 of those steamed into those pointy numbers, and the other 35 we didn't do because we just didn't have the time or the money or the manpower to do them. We built the fur onto hat milliner's gauze and then stuck that onto the hat, and then the hat was measured onto each and every extra and cast member, and then fitted accordingly and altered with using hat foam, actually hat foam. We like put it in to make it secure.
And don't each of the different sects have their own style of hats? Is that sort of
yes, that's right,
like gang colors?
yes, yes. So that's more with the street hat, like the black hat that we had. The Satmars wear the little flat short one that Yankee had on all the time. And then of course we had a much bigger one during the wedding for Ellie, who played the rabbi, because the rabbi has a really, really wide brim.
So what are you working on now that you're done with this, and what's the latest for you?
Well, I am of course in lockdown, as the rest of the world is, and I've been making masks for the community, for old people's homes, and anywhere where they can't get enough masks. I've been doing that from home, but we're all doing what we can to help out. I am halfway through shooting a big Apple TV show. We were down in Mexico, but of course that's come to a grinding halt. Hopefully it'll get back up. So I'm just kind of waiting till the world is cured of this very horrible virus.
One thing I did want to say is this is not just a story of female empowerment. The women are at the helm of every part of this series.
Yeah.
And I think that really, really shows.
Yeah, it was really fun to work with. It was a fantastic team. I mean, it was incredibly hard work as well, because we did achieve so much more than I thought possible. But you know, that's what we do. We create magic.
If you would like to see future episodes of Highly Unorthodox, subscribe to this channel and we'll notify you about upcoming shows. Thank you for leaving your comments below. Please support our sponsors, and thanks for watching. See you next time on Highly Unorthodox.